Well, let's close off all our talk about our disciple-making mission, thinking about where that mission plays out. You know, football games are played in a stadium. A play happens in a theater. Where does our mission take place? Of course, we might think, well, in the church building, and yep, we do lots of great stuff there. But let's think even more creatively about all the nooks and crannies and places where our mission could find expression, where we as disciple makers could maximize and leverage different kinds of environments for the sake of the mission. I invite you to think about a few different types of environments. The first one I'll just represent with this closed circle. Now, this is characterized by the fact that everyone in this environment is an insider with respect to like their commitment to Christ. They're on this side of the line, so to speak. And we, like church, Jesus people, are driving the agenda of what happens in this space. So you might think if you're in like a soul care group, anytime you guys meet, that's a closed kind of environment. You're all insiders and you're trying to shape that space so that good kinds of discipleship kinds of things can happen, right? Think then about an environment that looks like this, we'll say with the dotted circle. What characterizes this is that the people that are a part of this environment are insiders and outsiders with respect to their commitment to Jesus. They're all over the place on this continuum. But it's still the kind of place where we, like us Jesus people, are controlling what happens there. So an example of this would be like our worship services. When we're doing our mission right, we're intentionally trying to make those gatherings. Anytime we gather people for worship, we're trying to make it like this so that insiders and outsiders have a place to belong. And then, yes, we shape everything about what happens in that space to in that case, have an impact of everyone's glorifying God and being invited to worship and to connect with one another and so forth. So closed circle, a dotted circle, and then the last one, an environment that looks like this, just an open circle. And what characterizes that kind of place is that, again, insiders and outsiders are present, and we, the church, we're not in charge of what happens there. It's not our space, it's not our turf. And so this kind of place is, well, virtually every other place that exists, the mall or the sideline of a soccer game or a city council meeting, a school or whatever, okay? All those kinds of places. Now, what we're trying to understand is how can our mission, again, play out in any of these kinds of spaces? It's not just domesticated to like happen in a building somewhere, but no, how could any of these spaces be claimed for the purpose of our disciple-making mission? And the answer is going to be made up of three key ingredients: R-E-I. R-E-I. That means relationships, experiences, and information. More specifically, Jesus-shaped relationships, experiences, and information. If we are going to, in any given space where there are people, give the best chance for disciples to be made in that place, it's going to be because someone intentionally leavens those three ingredients into that space: relationships, experiences, and information. Sometimes we are guilty of thinking about discipleship all in terms of like information and knowing stuff. And we do got to know stuff. We got to learn. We got to have great content. That's why Jesus has given us His Word to teach and instruct, and that's very important. It's just not all there is. You think about the growth experiences that you've had. It's not just about the classroom learning. It's also so much richer when you are in a relationship, in a community of people learning and growing together, sharpening one another. That's the essence of how Jesus made disciples. As soon as we were connected to Him, He put us in connection with other people. We were made for relationships. And then the experiences reminds us that we have a faith that's meant to be tried, lived. We don't just learn stuff in the classroom. No, we do the lab session. We experiment. We go out and we experience and live out this faith. So all of these things, the R, the E, and the I, have to be present in any given environment. If I'm the disciple maker, I'm the leader in that kind of a place. So it invites us to think a few things, all right, as you absorb that. First of all, I'd invite you to think, if you're a leader of some kind of group or team or something, maybe it's an environment like this. Maybe you need to ask yourself if it should look more like this. Should it be, not every kind of place should be, but should it be a place where you're intentionally creating room for outsiders to be present, using language that would be, inviting for outsiders? Or are you insulated in too many places that look like this? Second thing is the encouragement to think holistically about the ways that you are trying to make disciples of others. So if you lead a small group, great. You're a Bible study. Maybe that's the thing that has drawn you together, okay, and you're getting lots of information. But don't just stay there and only focus there. No, you have to create some relational rapport and draw this community together and have a faith that is lived out. Don't just learn about prayer. No, pray together. Don't just learn about compassion and justice. No, demonstrate compassion and justice in the ways that you interact with others, in the ways that you serve the world. Have a faith that's lived out and share some experiences. Let's say you're leading a serving team. Great, you're sharing that experience together. You're serving together, but also pay attention to the relationships that you have and nurture those, strengthen those. Think about how this community is coming together. And then find some ways to get some Jesus content and to put before people so that they might consider, what is Jesus saying to them and what are they going to do about it? That's important to have all of those ingredients leavened into any environment where you're trying to make disciples. So a more holistic experience as a disciple maker. It takes all of the Jesus-shaped REI to give a chance for disciples to be made in any given place. Finally, let's think about this kind of a place, all right? As a church, we're trying to do this collectively more. Like when we think about, we did a pop-up Christmas service in the parking lot at the Boulevard. That ain't our space. That's not our turf. But we just tried to bring an experience and create an opportunity for connection, divine and human connection, and preach a word that would have a transformative impact in that space. Some of our partners, Extreme Family Outreach, they're in neighborhoods all up and down Route 40. They go into the neighborhood, throw up some tents and throw out some balls and hula hoops and play some music. And they draw kids from the neighborhood into a environment where they're just trying to love them and express their care and teach them some important truths about who God is and what God thinks of them and what God's purpose is for them. They're entering that space that they don't own. It doesn't belong to them, but they're trying to claim it as a space where disciples can be made. I'll tell you a personal one, thinking about how you maybe could be a disciple maker in a place that you don't own or control. When I go out to eat with my friend Tom Moen, he's on our staff here. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to sit down, and as we're ordering, he's going to start talking to the server and just have a conversation. He's going to do everything he can to build some kind of initial rapport in this relationship. He'll ask them their name, and he'll tell them his name, and then at some point, he's going to invite them to pray with us, to share that experience. He's going to say, look, we're going to pray for our meal anyway. Could we pray for you? What would you want us to pray for? If you're not busy, you got time, you want to pray with us? And sure, we'll invite them into that. And then at some point, we're going to share some information about who we are. And, hey, we're connected to this church called Mountain. And if there's some helpful information that we could share with you, we'll take an opportunity to do that. Again, I'm not saying we're baptizing people in the bathroom sink or anything, or, like maybe we've crossed this line right at that moment, but we're doing anything we can in a space that isn't, you might say, conducive for discipleship. Okay, but we're doing anything we can to leaven these ingredients into that space and give us the best chance for a discipling kind of impact to be made. Maybe someone just makes one step of openness toward Christ and makes some kind of movement, even in a space that looks like that. I mean, when we go on global trips, we're in spaces that we don't own. We're not even citizens there. We're trying to build relationships and shape some experiences and bring some kind of helpful word from God. We're going door to door in the slums of Nairobi. And that's what we're trying to do in that space that, again, we don't control. We're just trying to say, how could we be disciple makers in this place? Those basic ingredients in any type of environment give us the best chance to make disciples in that place. So think about those things as someone who is trying to shape people. Pay attention to the environments that you're shaping and how you're inviting people to follow Jesus in those places. And one more thing on this, these environments, more and more, might be digital, okay? That's where people are showing up, and the internet is very much a place like this. And we're trying to think about how we can not only push out content digitally, but how we can create connection digitally, and how we can call people to respond and experience God and have a faith that is tried and lived out, even in digital means, and we have a lot more work to do on that. So that's a way for us to think about disciple making and the kinds of environments where it plays out. And let me wrap it all together right here by just saying that a disciple maker is someone who can do this with any of these people in any of these kinds of places so that this happens. A disciple maker is someone who is connected to the source and is opening their lives to other people and loving them and receiving an invitation to have a relationship with someone else and just doing whatever they can to say, I just need to point you to Jesus. And it could be a person that is way down here in the negative space or someone who is already on the journey with Jesus. All they're doing is this basic thing at any point, in any kind of space, whether it's with a whole bunch of insiders or whether it's out in the world in a space that is foreign territory. We're doing this with any of these people in any of these places so that the fruit of an apple tree could ultimately grow. A new disciple could be made. And that's what our mission is all about.